Right. I thought today what we did is we kind of like go through a bit of a full body mobility thing to get us moving in the morning. Because I think this is kind of like rather than kind of just full on just like a yoga practice. I think sometimes modifying yoga in order to be able to do it as a mobility practice is actually better. And a lot of what I teach is mobility anyway, in under the banner of yoga. Because if you say mobility, nobody will come to your class. If you say yoga, a few people come to your class. Pro tip for teachers there. So I thought today we'd get going with that. And as always, we're going to start off with the breathing. And I always like to have one hand on the chest, one hand on the belly, but it is optional. I feel like it gives me more of just rather than an internal connection, but also a little bit of an external connection. I need all those connections I can get, being a little bit Asperger's as I am. Not everybody does. Tuning into your breath in whatever way feels like for you is the way that feels comfortable. Maybe it's the internal feeling of the breath. Maybe it's the feeling of the breath going past the nostrils or down the throat. If you're doing ujjayi breath, maybe it's the sound of the breath, or maybe there's a subtle sound to the breath. Maybe it's that touch sense of feeling the breath. Or maybe you're feeling your breath in some other way that I don't know. I'm not aware of. All of them are valid. All of them are okay. There's no make your way the way that is important to you. Gently ramping up the breath, maybe by 2 or 3%, or some small amount between each breath. And notice as you breathe just a little bit deeper with every breath. And maybe you exhale a little bit deeper with each breath. That you come to that place with the breath where you feel like that is the right breath for you at this point. You can change it during the practice. Doesn't have to stay the same throughout, but it is what is the right breath for you right now, the right dosage. And this is going to be the theme for this Saturday practice, because I think it's the last practice until next Saturday. No, yes, dosage, having the right dosage of things, whether that be yoga or Easter eggs or anything in between. Finding that right dosage for you. And getting to that place, that internal place of feeling as connected to yourself as you can be right now. And that might be being very connected to yourself, might be very feeling like that's a very difficult thing. So all that spectrum is okay and it's all valid. And taking this time for you. Now we tuned into the breath. Let's start off with a little bit of getting a bit of mobility. Before we're going to start actually physically moving, let's take our fingers and put them on the back of the head. And find that ridge on the back of your skull. The occipital ridge. And using your fingers, maybe one finger, maybe two fingers, maybe three fingers, strumming from the middle across to the side along those muscles that connect onto the bottom of that ridge. So what I'm doing here is I've almost got my middle finger on the ridge, and I'm using the index finger below and the ring finger above, and I'm just gently separating the muscles and going out to the side. Maybe moving so that my index finger is on the ridge, so I've got two fingers above the occipital ridge. And maybe altering that, so I'm putting my ring finger on the ridge, so I've got two fingers below the occipital ridge. Apologies to people with long hair who've tidied their hair up today. It makes it a little bit more tricky, but it's actually quite a nice thing to do. Next, bring the fingers and put them on the side of the cheek, and we're going to massage this jaw muscle here, which is another tense, tight one. I go from underneath the cheekbone here, so between the earlobe and the front, and I come down, and I always finish by going slightly under the jawbone. And you might feel a little ridge in your jawbone here, which is where the attachment points are. Little notch, not a little ridge. Maybe opening the mouth a little bit so you get a little bit more purchase in there. Gentle head movements from side to side now. So taking the head from left to right. Again, that internal sense of dosage with this movement. And I want you to also focus on how does it feel if you gently open the mouth as you're moving the head from side to side. Notice here if there's any lifting of the shoulders up towards the ears. And ask them to go there, slide down the back because they can stand down for now. Feeling for this movement being in the range and that is comfortable to you. And then moving the head up, looking up as high as feels good. And then moving the head down. Now, when you're moving the head down, rather than thinking about looking down, I want you to think about lifting the back of your head up. So you're keeping the spine long. Looking up and looking down by lifting the back of the head up. And then bring the chin down onto the chest. Again, this idea of lengthening the back of the head as the chin comes down onto the chest. Maybe the chin actually touches the chest, maybe it doesn't. And then slowly rotate the head from one side to the other. And letting the chin come down to the middle of the chest for a breath. Using both hands to lift the head up, back to the middle. Seated shoulder shrugs. Slightly differently how we do them. Shoulder shrugs normally done, we would do both sides at once. We're going to do one side, then we're going to do the other side, and we're going to do both sides. So this is what we're going to do. Left side first. So let the left arm be long and heavy. Take a long breath in. Bring the left shoulder up towards the left ear as high as you possibly can. Higher still. If you feel like you need a cue for the movements here, maybe bring the other hand on here so you can actually help it move if you feel like it's not moving. Then shoot the shoulder back. And then exhale, roll that shoulder blade down the back really, really slowly. Keeping the arm floppy as you're going along. Big breath in again. Squeeze the left shoulder blade towards the spine. Squeeze, 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 squeeze it again. If it needs a little bit of a cue to bring the shoulder back, you can use the other hand. Squeeze it together, then exhale. Let the arm become heavy. Down to the front. Big breath in again. Roll the bottom tip of that shoulder in, rolling the elbow in. I can't see my elbow, but you can see what I'm doing. And then let that shoulder come down. Do the other side. Big breath in again. This is the driving movement. Shoulder comes up towards the ear. Really pull it up. And then shoulder goes back. And then exhale, let it come down the back. Then the arm come heavy. Big breath in again. Squeeze the middle of the shoulder blade towards the spine. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Again, use a proprioceptive cue if it helps to bring that back. And then let the arm come down the back. Let the arm be floppy. Another breath in. Squeezing the bottom tip of the shoulder blade towards the spine. Squeeze it in, squeeze it in, squeeze it in. Exhale, let it drop down. Let's do both sides now. Big breath in. Shoulders come up. Shoulders go back. Exhale, roll them back down. Big breath in again. Squeeze the middles of your shoulder blades together. Squeeze them together. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Exhale, roll them down the back. Another breath in. Squeeze the bottom tips of shoulder blades together. Squeeze them together. And roll them back on the back. I'm going to sit in a bolster because I kind of like sitting on a bolster. There's another thing sitting on a bolster does as well, is that if you're somebody that finds having one leg straight out in front of you sort of feels weird in the hips because your bum's on the floor too, elevating the hips slightly and having that leg straight is actually a nice way to do it because it changes the tilt of the pelvis slightly and makes having this leg longer easier because it doesn't pull on the hamstrings as much, but it actually lets you get a deeper stretch in. You could also sit on a block doing this. So if you're somebody with tight hamstrings, elevating the hips actually is a really good thing to be doing here. So if you're okay sitting on the floor, sit on the floor, but if you feel like you like elevating the hips, these things or blocks, brilliant. So let's start off here with the left leg out in front. Two options here with the right leg. You can have the heel towards the groin like I've got here, or you can bring the heel, don't fall off your balls like I do, the heel behind you like this. This is going to internally rotate this thigh. For some people, this is a nice movement. For other people, for me, this doesn't feel so great, but actually, it probably means I need to do it some more. Or you can have leg the other way. Inhale, arms come up. Exhale, left hand onto the left shin or knee. Right hand comes up and over, almost like you're reaching for your toe. Chest openness, so just the top arm moves, bring it about behind you to about 45 degrees. Long breath in, extending the arm. Feel for the shoulder blade moving out to the side. Exhale, bring that arm back, almost like you're squeezing the middles of your shoulder blades together again. Third arm position, hand comes down, floats above the floor. Now, if you've got your leg behind you like I've got here, you could grab hold of the ankle as well. That, for some people, like this stretch of strength, of lengthening the arm here. Other people just doesn't feel like it works. If you've got the leg out in front, then you've got nothing to hold on to anyway. Pick the hand up off the leg, put it underneath your head, and then lift your head up to the middle. Whatever you're doing with your legs, do it on the other side. Don't be surprised if especially if you're doing this internal rotation of this thigh here, which is generally where we are in the West, a little bit more impinged, that one side feels different to the other. This feels better for me doing this side, but that varies on kind of like how your skeleton is put together. If it doesn't feel good, again, you could always bring this leg to here, so you got the heel to the thigh, heel to the groin. Inhale, arms up. Right hand onto the right knee or right shin. Left arm comes up and over. Chest opener. Arm comes down to about 45 degrees. Inhale, make that arm long. Feel for the shoulder blade being the bit that drives that lengthening in the arm. And then shoot the arm back a little bit as far as feels comfortable. Maybe feel for bringing that shoulder blade towards the middle of the spine like we did earlier. Third arm position here, that neck release position. So this hand comes down, maybe hovers above the floor. Maybe catching your ankle if you've got the ankle on that side. Again, to come out of this, pick the right hand up, put it underneath the right hand side of your head, lift your head up to the middle. Straighten out your legs, give your legs a little bit of a shake. Maybe rotating the knees in and out, get some movement through the hip sockets again. Forward bend. Two options with forward bend. People who can sit and they sit in this legs forward position and do this classic forward bend, arms come up, pike, maybe they touch their toes. You can do it this way. This is a great way if you really like getting into your hamstrings, and forward bends are not a problem for you. If you're like me and forward bends are a problem for you, I suggest we do this one side. Again, having the hips elevated makes a massive difference. Left leg comes out, right leg comes heel to groin, but the left leg is straight out in front this time. If it feels weird that your knee is hovering in the air here, you can always put something underneath the knee. That actually helps quite a lot as well in making the leg feel safe in this position. Inhale, arms come up, lengthen through the spine, lift up through your ribs, lift up through your whole skeleton. Exhale, come into a forward bend, maybe hands on thigh, hands on knees, hands on the shin, hands on the foot. If you're doing the one version with both feet at the front, then put your hands wherever they feel good. Main thing with forward bends is to notice where the points of tightness are. So the place we feel the tightness most for most people, if you ask them, is the back of the thighs, back of the legs. But it actually, you might notice that you're compensating in places by not letting the head relax or the shoulders relax, because there's a whole line of fascia that goes from the underneath the sole of the foot, up the back of the leg, up the hips, and all the way to the front of the skull. And so the idea is to let everything that can relax. Because even though we're feeling tightness in the back of the leg, that might not be the place where the actual source of the tightness is. Inhale, come back up, whether you're doing one leg or both legs at a time. If you're doing one leg, swap it over and do the other side. Same process. Inhale, lift through the spine. Lift as long and high as you can. Exhale, come into that forward bend on the other side, or again, if you go both legs out in front, both legs. Feel for everything being relaxed again. Everything from your forehead along the back of your head to that ridge at the back of your head that we were massaging earlier, all the way down the spine. Let the shoulders roll down the side. Let the torso be relaxed. Let the leg be as relaxed as possible if you're feeling tensed in there. Inhale, slowly come back up. Seated chest opener with optional lion's breaths. Some people love lion's breaths, which is that kind of thing where you kind of, I'll show you what it is anyway. Some people hate them. If you're not into lion's breaths, don't feel the pressure to do it here, but nobody can hear you, so it's kind of cool. Bring the soles of your feet together into this Baddha Konasana position, or butterfly feet. Then you're going to bring your arms behind you on the floor, and you're going to lift your chest up. Now, this is the first bit of this position here, is to lift the chest up. You might notice that you're squeezing your shoulder blades a little bit together. That's kind of cool. Maybe you're pressing your feet together. That's also kind of cool. How do we come from here and do lion's breaths? Well, this is the key. We're going to take a big breath in. And then go, so keeping this chest opener position here, lifting up, big breath in, relax the belly. If you're into lion's breaths, if you're not, don't worry about it. I'm imagining somebody's coming for my Easter eggs and I'm scaring them away. One more, big breath in. And then come forward. Make the spine long. If you're still comfortable in Baddha Konasana, stay in Baddha Konasana for a bit. Two things that you can do if Baddha Konasana is not fully comfortable because of whatever, you can bring block or something underneath your foot. This is a super comfortable position for some people. It's cool that you could use blocks too. If Baddha Konasana is just not your friend at all today, then you can be cross-legged, or you can straddle, or whatever feels good. Anyway. Kind of forgot what I was going to do in Baddha Konasana. Okay, I remember what I was going to do in Baddha Konasana. Okay. Find your left arm. Bring it out in front of you, like this. Fingers pointing up towards the ceiling. Can you see that? Yeah. Then I'm going to bring the arm down so the fingers are pointing horizontal. So my forearm is horizontal, parallel to the floor underneath me. I'm going to take my other hand and put it on top. Put the other hand on top of here. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this arm and I'm going to be pushing the hand up. So I'm going to be trying to bring the arm up to this vertical position here, but I'm using the other hand to stop it. So that's the thing. I'm trying to bring this arm up here, but I'm using this other hand to stop it. So bring the hand on top, press the bottom hand into the top hand into the bottom hand, and you're stopping that arm from moving. Keep breathing while you're doing this. Then stop. Bring the arm this time so it's at 45 degrees to the floor. You don't need a protractor or anything. You can just eyeball it. Hand goes on top. Again, same thing. You're trying to push this arm up into the 12 o'clock position, but you're stopping it with the other hand. You're probably feeling a little bit of a burn in the shoulder. One more. So you bring the arm up to this position, put the hand against the back of the hand. And this time you're trying to push the hand further than the 12 o'clock position. And give that arm a shake, because you're probably feeling like, wow, there's some stuff moved in there. We're going to get to why we're doing this in a second. Let's do the other arm first. Let's start off with the right hand horizontal, hand on top, and we're pushing. So I'm trying to push like this, but this hand is keeping it from going. Breath or two for this. Then move it to the 45-degree position. And then arm up to the vertical. I'm doing the same thing again. And then give your arms a little bit of a shake, because you're probably feeling it. Why was I doing that? It's a way to help us get into eagle arms, and also archer arms, but eagle arms specifically. So let's do eagle arms. For eagle arms, the elbows are out in front, arms are over the top. You're going to cross your right elbow over the left. like this. For some people, this is as far as they want to go here because like the mobility issues, but you might be able to bring your hands together either in a kind of a very, I don't know, some people say it's very lotus-looking position or a tulip-looking. Mine does not look anything like that. But that exercise that we did before helps us in this external rotation, the external rotation of this arm at the top, which is what we're actually getting into with eagle arms. Stay here for another breath. And then slowly come out of that. Unfurl your arms, unfurl your shoulders, maybe give them a little bit of a shake. And we'll do the other side. So arms come up in front. This time you're going to do your left over your right. Don't be surprised if they feel different, and then bring the hands towards one another. Again, here, there's some bizarre geometry reason my hands are miles away from one another. That's okay. You could also bring the hands onto the shoulders. That works quite nice. You're working with what range of movement that you have, not what somebody who drew a yoga textbook has, or somebody who invented yoga has, or another yoga teacher. Then come out of that one. Give your arms a bit of a shake, your shoulders a bit of a shake. Straighten out through the elbows. This is another important thing that we don't do a lot we don't do enough, is that we don't straighten joints out enough, especially like elbows and knees and hips. So straighten out the whole elbow. Feel for where your normal position of keeping the arm is, and then extend it out beyond that. If you're hypermobile, go to your full range because this is unloaded. It doesn't make any difference. It's the same with the other hand. Go to that position where you feel like, oh, that's straight, but then you're extending it even further. And then if you're in Baddha Konasana, use your hands to bring your bring your knees together rather than your hips. Give your legs a shake. And we're going to come into child's pose. Some people love child's pose. Some people hate child's pose. A way to make child's pose more fun if you don't like it is something like a bolster. So you can have one bolster, or you can have two bolsters. You can even have like blankets or whatever. If you don't need bolsters, then you're kind of fine. I'm going to show how to do child's pose with a bolster. So I'm kneeling by the bolster, knees wide apart. Chest comes down on the bolster, and I'm going to bring my arms out in front. With your arms out in front in child's pose, turn so you can hear me. What I want you to do is to gently send your hips towards your heels. Gently press the palms of your hands down into the floor, and gently pull your palms of your hands towards you. So you're sending your hips towards your heels, but you're pulling your hands towards your body. So you're lengthening the spine. And then let go of all that effort. Let go of the trying of bringing your hips towards your heels. Let go of the effort of pressing your hands into the floor. Let go of the effort of pulling your hands towards you. Let's do those three things again. Take a big breath in. Send your hips towards your heels. Press your hands into the floor, and then pull your hands towards you gently. Keep breathing while you're doing this, and then let it all go. Slowly make your way out of child's pose. We're going to come back into this position in a little bit. So if you're using blocks or something, keep them handy. Come straight to a lunge without any kind of like any kind of random faffing around. Which way am I going to go here? I'm going to go like this. So my right leg is in front, left leg is behind. So let's start off with a classic lunge. I like to bring the hands onto my thighs for this early morning lunge. I'm pushing my hips forward, lifting my chest up, and driving the hips forward. Now, if you're feeling like tightness in the low back from here, keep it easy. Maybe bring this front leg a little bit closer so you don't feel so much tightness. Or maybe some people like to bring it a little bit further away because that actually alleviates the tightness for people because it depends what's causing that tightness. So some people bring that leg a little bit closer and they feel like they can get it deeper. Other people take it a little bit further and they feel like they can get a little bit deeper without that tightness in the low back. Staying here, breathing, lifting the chest up. And then coming back up into an upright lunge position, square off in the front, square off in the back. So if you've got your right leg out in front, I want you to bring your left hand on the outside of your right knee, and then your right hand, you're going to point towards your back heel. Now, you might be able to touch your back heel. You might not be able to touch your back heel. Doesn't really matter here. What we're doing is we're turning the body towards the right-hand side of your body. So you're twisting to the right, and you're using this hand here maybe as a cue. I can get my hand on the side of this leg here, on the side of this heel here, and I can help myself twist. But don't force it. Don't force it. Don't fall over either. Inhale, come back to the middle. Easy twisting lunge. So left hand comes down on the floor or on the block. Right hand up towards the sky or on the hip or on your knee here. If you've got the hand pointing up towards the sky, I like to feel for pushing the fingers up like I'm reaching for something. Because if you feel like you're reaching for something, your body will make the longest line it can. And this hand here will be pretty much above the hand that you've got on the floor. Because that's the longest line you can make. Maine Coon cat stretch. Bring both hands down onto the floor on the inside of your foot. Sinking your chest down towards the floor. Maybe curling the back toes under, lifting that back knee up, whatever feels like it works for you today. Come back up from that kneeling position into this lunge position, upright lunge position. And we're going to arch your arms in this position. So bring your right arm up, bend the elbow, hand onto the back. Option here, the other hand can come onto this top elbow, so you're bringing the elbow to the center line, or you can do the full manifestation of archer arms if that feels better, if that feels good for you today. Come out of that one. One more. Lunging psoas stretch. I'm just going to turn so you can see what I'm going to do. This front leg here, I'm going to take that to the side a little bit. So maybe about not all the way to the side, maybe about halfway, maybe like 45 degrees or something. So I'm bringing it a little bit out to the side. Like this. And then inhale, bring the arms up. Exhale, gently lean back and push your hips forward. So you'll feel a stretch on the inside of the thigh, maybe even going through the abdomen where the psoas muscle gets a little bit of a stretch here. It's quite a gentle stretch, this one, for a morning, because we don't really want to be going too deep into the psoas early in the morning. And then come out of that one, swap over. We do everything that we did on that side on the other side. So we start off with a lunge, classic lunge. I like hands on the thigh for this one. Again, play with that forward foot position as you thrust your hips forward, and if you're feeling any tightness in the low back. Next one we did was this twisting lunge that we did. So I'm bringing my right hand on the outside of my left knee. Left hand is pointing towards my heel. Maybe I'm touching my heel, maybe not. And I'm turning to the left. I'm feeling an enormous stretch in the rib cage as I'm doing this. So again, play with it in a position. I quite like this enormous stretch I'm feeling, but don't go into that place if you don't like that feeling of enormous stretches. Play with it in a way that feels like it works best for you. Slowly come out of that. Next thing we did was easy twisting lunge. Right hand down on the floor, left hand up in the sky. Again, this idea of reaching up with the top arm, because as you reach up, your body will kind of make the most efficient shape that it can to let you reach the highest that you possibly can. And generally, that is a straight line. Maine Coon cat stretch. Both hands come down on the floor. Come up out of that. And we're going to do this psoas stretch again. Let me show you the setup for this. This is the classic lunge position with this left leg pointing out in front. We're going to move this left leg out to the side a little bit. Again, let your hips decide how far you're going to do. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, shoot the hips forward as much as feels possible. Again, here, you're going for kind of like a very gentle stretch, not something that feels enormous. So that might mean you're quite upright. It might mean some people are leaning quite far back. And come up out of that one. Maybe come into a child's pose for a breath or two. With the option of doing that thing. Into what's classically known in the yoga style I do called nomad's pose. Now, for nomad's pose, you're going to start off in a kneeling position and then you're going to bring one leg out in front and you're on the heel of the leg like this. Some people find it nice to have something to lean onto, so maybe a windowsill or a chair or some blocks or something. And what we're going to do is we're going to lift the chest up, straighten that leg out as much as feels good. If you're hypermobile, keep it straight, not overlocking it. And then gently coming into some kind of forward bend, maybe over something like I'm on a bolster here. Maybe bringing your hands onto the floor or onto blocks. Take a big breath in and exhale, come out of that one. Swap over and do the other side. So, onto the heel of the leg, leg long. Hypermobile people, be especially aware of keeping the leg long. And then some forward bend, maybe onto a bolster, onto a windowsill, hands on floor, hands on a block. The more you can relax your upper body into something here, on over something like a bolster or a chair or something, or the more that you can let your upper body feel safe here, the easier it is for the back of the leg to feel like it's opening. If your upper body is all unstable and feels like it's having to work really hard, your whole body's going to fight this pose. And then come out of that one. Let's stand up for a couple of minutes for a couple of poses. First one we're going to do is calf stretch. For this one, you can see my feet. I'm going to use a bolster. I'm going to put my toes on the bolster like this. You can use a block. You can also do this against the wall. It's not as effective, I find, against the wall. If you've got like a step in a fireplace or something, that also works. So, foot on the block, heel down to the floor, move the other leg forward until you're feeling a calf stretch. Notice if you're doing this, you're sort of bending forwards, and then lift up out of that, because that bending forward will take out some of that stress. This is a good time to be focusing what I said earlier, that we don't open out the elbow enough, but we also don't open out the hip enough and the knees enough. So for this one, feel for getting your legs and your hips as long and as open as possible. Again, hypermobile people, you don't really have to worry about your knees here because it's not overly loaded. Sometimes every hypermobile people get told keep micro bends and things the whole time. Studies don't say you need to do that. Step this other leg back. Give your calf muscle a little bit of a wiggle. Swap it over to the other side. So the other foot onto the bolster or block. Move the other foot to a place forward where you're feeling like, yep, that's a decent enough stretch on that muscle. And then straighten up through the hips, straighten up through the knees. And come out of that one. Give your leg a little bit of a shake. Warrior one. Let's come into an easy Saturday morning bank holiday version of Warrior one. Step the left leg back, right leg's forward, right knee's bent. Turn your hips facing the short end of the mat. Press to that front foot, press to that back foot, and then do that thing that I did of lifting up. For me, there's a lot of different liftings that happen here. I feel my rib cage lifting up. I feel my spine lifting up. I feel my head lifting up. I almost feel like there's a lifting that happens in the low back. But what I don't want to be lifting, I don't want to be lifting my shoulders. They can come down and relax. And I want to be breathing in an easy way. Easy nomad's pose. Take your hands, clasp them behind your back. If clasping them behind your back doesn't work, find some way of having your arms behind your back. 3 things we're going to do here. Take a big breath in. Lift the chest up. Exhale. Lengthen the arms down towards the floor and maybe lifting the hands away from the hips a little bit. Can you see what I'm doing it? Lifting the hands away from the hips a little bit that way. And then let go of that one. Step to the front of the mat. Let's do the other side. So step the other leg back. Warrior one. All those things that we did before. Front knee gets bent. Hips and chest point towards the short end of the mat. Lifting up through the spine, lifting the chest up, lifting everything up except your shoulders. You don't want those lifted up. And then let's do that nomad's pose on the other side. Clasp the hands behind the back. Inhale, lift the chest up. Exhale, drive your hands down. An option of lifting the hands away from the hips, like like that. And then let go of everything. Step to the front. Taking some easy breaths in. Again, figuring out your dosage here. And maybe it's not just dosage for yoga. Maybe it's dosage of what you're going to do for the rest of the day. Maybe it's a change. It's re-examining the dosage of things you're going to do the rest of your life. Standing side stretch. I love this one, and it's one of my favorite stretches for a weekend. Feet hip distance apart. Inhale, lift the arms up. Excuse me. Right hand onto left wrist. Lengthen up through the spine, and then gently drop that right elbow down so you're leaning to the right a little bit. Inhale, come back to the middle, swap your hands over. Exhale, lean the other way. Inhale, back to the middle. Let's do one more. Swap hands over. Exhale, lean the other way. Inhale, come back to the middle. Swap them over again. Exhale, lean the other way. Come back to the middle. Let your arms come down. And let's finish off by doing a few classic cool down poses. The first one is a kneeling cool down pose. Again, if you feel like your knees need a little bit of a break from kneeling, you could kneel on a pad or something. Or kneel on a bolster if you have one. That's kind of nice too. And then, can't see my feet. Let me see what I'm doing with my feet. This classic kneeling position, two different ways. Some people bring the toes underneath the foot and then sink down onto the heels. This one works best for me. Other people will bring the backs of their feet onto the floor and sink down. The backs of the feet on the floor are actually quite nice because it lengthens those muscles on the front of the shin, which are one of those ones that we can actually be quite tight in. Quite good for people who feel like they have a little bit of knee pain. If you feel like you're going too deep in this stretch, you could put a block or cushion underneath your hips. Stay here for a couple of breaths. Birdwing. Inhale, bring the arms in to your rib cage. Hands come together. Exhale, hands move away from one another. Inhale, bring the hands together. Exhale, bring the hands away from one another. Doing this in an easy way. The full-on yoga class, it's almost easy to turn this rather delicate movement into almost like cardio or calisthenics or something like that. And actually, it's quite a calming movement, and by just changing the dosage, the whole pose can feel different. Child's pose. Like we did before, if you feel like having something underneath the chest, this feels nice for child's pose, and you can do it in this one. Arms out in front. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to gently drive the hips down towards the heels. Gently press the hands down into the floor. Gently feel for pulling the hands towards you. And then let go of all that doing. Let your chest sink down. Let your whole body sink just a little bit deeper towards the center of the earth. And let's do that again. So feel for gently driving the hips down towards the heels. Gently pressing your hands down into the floor. Gently pulling your hands towards you. And let go of all that trying. Let go of all that effort. Before we come into Shavasana, let's lie down on the floor. Couple of things. First off, relax everything in the upper body as much as possible. Let your shoulders relax, let your elbows relax, let your hands relax down. Let your head sink to the floor. Feel yourself becoming almost one with the floor, with the mat. Bring the feet onto the floor, knees bent, knees up towards the ceiling, and then slowly rock your knees from side to side to side. Keeping the movement easy, keeping the movement within that dosage that you want. If you're somebody that likes a big twist, then you could do the dragonfly twist, cross your right ankle over your left thigh, and then let the right foot come down towards the floor on the left-hand side. If you're not into deep twists, then keep the knees from moving from side to side. If you're doing the dragonfly twist on the one side, unhook your ankle, bring that knee to the middle, bring the other knee to the middle, then swap your legs over. So this time you'll be crossing left ankle over right thigh, and then bringing the left sole of the foot down onto the floor on the right-hand side. Or you're carrying on doing the wiggles from side to side thing. And then slowly undo yourself out of that, whatever you're doing, and move into whatever version of Shavasana you want to have today. Whether it's Shavasana under a blanket, maybe Shavasana. Usually we do Shavasana in darkness, but sometimes it's quite nice to let the sun in. It can be a whole different feeling. Finding a Shavasana that is whatever it is that you need right now. Back to that dosage. Start to reawaken your senses. Maybe gently deepening the breath. Maybe by bringing some movement in. Maybe by just soaking in whatever you're feeling right now, the sensations. Maybe the sunlight on your back, or maybe the sounds that you can hear. And slowly starting to move if you want to move. You don't have to move. We live in a world of having to do a lot of things. Yoga shouldn't bring more of that into your life. Should bring less of it. That's my view anyway. And if you feel like you want to come up into a seated position, you can, or if not, don't worry about it. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me today. I hope that was a bit of fun. Got a bit of movement in there. Got a little bit of what's time. But above all, it actually made a little bit of space up here, everywhere else. That's the kind of cool thing. Have a good Easter.